Domestic violence. I didn't even know what these words meant until my early 20s, when I started volunteering at our local abortion clinic in St. Louis. One of the questions I had to ask in my assessment was, are you in an abusive relationship? I was shocked that so many women answered yes, and I was outraged that over the 22 years I spent counseling women with unintended pregnancies, the prevalence only seemed to increase. One woman, I remember, she told me how her abusive boyfriend had been verbally abusive before she got pregnant, but now that she was pregnant, he had started to become physically abusive. Her name was Michelle. She told me that her boyfriend punched her repeatedly in her stomach, told her that she wasn't worthy of being a mother, and that he would leave her if she didn't have an abortion. Michelle stated, though, when I asked her why she stayed with him, why a man that beat her, what would be the reason? She said, well, I would be out on the street if it wasn't for him. He pays the rent. Michelle's tragic story is only one of the many stories that made the words domestic violence have meaning to me. But those words have had meaning to the National Council of Jewish Women for over 117 years. Throughout our history, the National Council of Jewish Women has worked for the elimination of and protection from all forms of harassment, violence, abuse, and exploitation against women. Years ago, we helped enact the Violence Against Women Act, the first federal legislation acknowledging domestic violence and sexual assault as crimes. And over the years, we have discovered just how essential VAWA is. According to a census conducted by the National Network to End Domestic Violence last year, in 2009, in a single day, domestic violence programs served over 65,000 adults and children in the United States. Tragically, that same day, more than 9,000 requests went unmet because there just weren't enough resources. Today, we strive for better. We continue to work with our colleagues to ensure that the foundation VAWA built in 1994 is strengthened when it is reauthorized next year. And we work to enact the International Violence Against Women Act, because violence against women has no borders. Globally, 1 in every 3 women will be beaten, coerced into sex, or otherwise abused in her lifetime. Here at home, sections from NCJW sections from all across the country are involved in a range of incredible activities aimed at assisting victims of domestic violence and preventing further abuse. NCJW sections in Chicago, Palm Beach, and St. Paul have collected suitcases for women and children leaving domestic violence shelters in their Luggage for Freedom project. NCJW sections in Detroit, St. Louis, Seattle, and Essex County have joined with Eve Ensler's V-Day campaign, performing the vagina monologues to sold-out crowds as a way to raise funds for their domestic violence prevention programs. NCJW sections in Nashville, South Shore, and West Morris participate in the National Silent Witness Initiative to raise awareness about domestic violence, and these are only a sampling of the projects our sections do in our communities. Therefore, when a bequest was left to NCJW to be used for work in the area of violence against women, we saw it as an opportunity to build upon and enhance the amazing work that NCJW, our sections, members, and supporters have been doing for years. It was the opportunity and time to build a new campaign. The Benchmark and Plan A campaigns are not just the heart and soul of NCJW. They are some of the strongest reasons why NCJW continues to be at the forefront of social change and known as the voice of progressive Jewish women. Now, our new campaign on domestic violence will be joining Benchmark and Plan A as another marquee campaign. To get here, poised to launch this effort, we worked with NCJW leaders from across the country, endeavoring to uncover why domestic violence persists. Over and over again, we were told that women stay in violent environments primarily because they do not have the financial resources to leave. Let me say that another way. Too often, women face an impossible choice: personal safety or economic ruin. How appalling it is that women must choose between their own safety and having a roof over their head or food on their table. The fact that any woman ever has to make that choice signals a breakdown in the system, and that problems exist that extend far beyond the four walls of that woman's home. We were also told that this intersection between domestic violence and women's economic security is not being adequately addressed. Advocacy initiatives often support critical funding for services to victims and survivors, while the emergency interventions that shelters, hotlines, and other service programs provide are essential for women in crisis. We must do more to create systemic change, because no woman, as I said before, should have to choose between personal safety and economic stability for herself and her children. To help us fully understand the relationship between domestic violence and economic security, let's start by reviewing what each one means separately and then seeing where they intersect. What do we mean when we say domestic violence? Domestic violence, sometimes referred to as intimate partner violence, is physical, emotional, verbal, sexual, or economic abuse by an intimate partner. Partners may be married or not married, heterosexual, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, living together, separated, or dating. The incidence of domestic violence in the U.S. is staggering. Each year, 1.3 million women will experience abuse in an intimate relationship. 1.3 million. And over a lifetime, 1 in 4 women will experience abuse. What's more, given the shame and fear women often experience in revealing abuse, the incidence of domestic violence may be much higher because of underreporting. So let's look at what we mean when we say economic security. Economic security, or financial security, is the condition of having stable income or other resources to support a basic standard of living now and in the foreseeable future. The principal measures of socioeconomic position are income, employment status, education, and occupation. So just how does domestic violence intersect with a women's economic security? Well, let's take a look at just a few of the facts. While domestic violence is a factor in approximately 6% of all U.S. households, that's high enough, 20 to 30% of women receiving welfare are current victims of domestic violence.